In today's episode, we're getting into the basics of cycle syncing, what it is, why it matters, and how it can transform the way you move through each month. I'll walk you through the 4 different phases, explain how to track your cycle, and show you how to create a rhythm that aligns with your body's natural energy. I'm a firm believer that this isn't a one-size-fits-all plan. This is about understanding your unique cycle so that you can experience greater balance, less stress, and more ease in your daily life. It's been a game changer for me, and that's why I'm super excited to dive into it with you. So pop in your earbuds or grab that load of laundry you haven't quite folded yet, and let's get into it. Are you an overwhelmed stay-at-home mom struggling to keep your home organized and cozy while balancing endless tasks? Do you feel like no matter how much you do, it's never enough? Are you constantly comparing your life and home to others on social media? If you're feeling lost in your role as a homemaker and mother, you're not alone. Welcome to Modern Homemaker Mom, the podcast that provides simple homemaking strategies rooted in biblical principles. Each episode offers real-life solutions to help you confidently create a peaceful, inviting home. From managing your time and priorities to decluttering, organizing, and building healthy habits, you'll learn how to organize your home and life with purpose. I'm Janae Schmid, a wife, mom, and homemaker just like you. I know what it feels like to be overwhelmed by the daily demands of running a household while trying to nurture your family and maintain a sense of peace in your home. Through my own journey of learning homemaking skills and living out my calling as a wife and mother, I have found freedom in embracing these roles with joy. Now I'm here to help other stay-at-home moms do the same without the stress. It's time to confidently step into your calling and create a home that reflects God's love. Let's build a home that you and your family love, one step at a time. So before I dive into today's episode, I wanted to take a quick moment to share a review from one of our amazing listeners. Her name is Emily. Janae shares so much wisdom in this podcast. It truly feels like I'm having a conversation with one of my close friends. All of her tips are very practical, and I can't wait to hear more. Oh my goodness, it's reviews like this that really just make me smile, because this is just like the goal, the vision I had for this podcast is I want you to feel like we're sitting at my kitchen table with vintage teacups, having tea, just discussing these real life problems and just giving you solutions to these things, being open about it. So if you're enjoying the show and haven't left a review yet, I would love to hear from you on Apple Podcast. Go ahead and leave me a written review. It takes only a minute and it really supports the work that I'm doing here to bring encouragement and practical tips to you and other women in their homemaking journey. In episode 6, I gave a brief overview of what cycle syncing is and the importance behind it, which is, just as a recap, aligning with your unique rhythm rather than following a fixed plan. There's so many things in life that the world just puts this fixed plan over top of it, like it's a one-size-fits-all solution, where really it's not. We're all different in our own ways. All of us go through different seasons. Our life looks different from one person to the next. And so cycle syncing is about figuring out how your body works and then making a plan that aligns with your cycle. Like I've said before, and I will always say this, cycle syncing has personally impacted me in so many ways, like making the most of those times in my cycle where I have a lot of energy and I'm ready to get a lot done, really be productive and efficient, and then also being mindful of when I need to be more inward, more reflective, take care of myself. So cycle syncing can be super powerful and help you in so many ways by creating those patterns and reducing stress, improving your overall mood, which honestly improves the whole atmosphere of your home, because I really do believe that women set the tone of the home and children look to their mom, their parents, and they reflect that emotion that they're maybe feeling or the energy that they're putting off, and it really affects the whole family in general. So I think if the woman is in a good state, in a good place, it really, domino effect onto the rest of the family. To kind of paint a picture and give you an idea of what my life looked like before I started cycle syncing just a couple years ago, I would be out with a friend or a family member one day and feel totally fine. Like I was okay with it. And then that friend that I was out with might suggest that we do something next week, and I would just jump on board with it right away. Like, oh yeah, sure. Like I would love doing that. And then the following week would come around and I would literally get anxiety and sometimes even cry about it because I just was not feeling up to socializing. And I would do this to myself time and time again. I'd kick myself and be like, Janae, why did you say yes to that? Or why did you just say yes without thinking about it? And it was very frustrating for me. Or I would make big decisions at certain times of the month, and it would just cause so much stress because I would feel like everything at that time was just bothering me so much. And it was always just so confusing because I didn't understand why sometimes things really got to me and other times things didn't bother me at all. There were times that I was super snappy with my husband, and it frustrated me not knowing why I was upset or sad. He would ask me like, "Why are you feeling this way?" And I just literally had no explanation. I had no solution. I was just totally not understanding why I was feeling snappy and snapping for no good reason. And not knowing how to explain my feelings was very hard. Another example is one day I'd be super motivated and ready to clean, organize the entire shed, and the next day I would wonder where on earth did that motivation go, while all I wanted to do was instead put on my pajama pants and eat popcorn all day long. Does any of this sound like you or something that you might have experienced in the past before as well? I know how you feel. I'm in your corner and I've been there. And that's why I started looking for solutions. And what I came across was this whole cycle syncing concept. So today we're going to dive into some practical steps and strategies to help you solve this, get over this by starting to track your cycle. So the first step that you need to take to track your cycle is you need to understand what your cycle length is. The average cycle length is anywhere from 21 to 35 days. The second step that you need to know is you need to track your menstruation and how long that lasts. Know when your period begins and then when it ends. This is the foundation of cycle syncing. You cannot figure out and fine-tune a cycle syncing system to your specific needs if you don't have these two things. And then the third way that you're going to figure out how to track your cycle is you need to identify your ovulation time. So you can go about this in a couple ways. One is the easy way. Just to get you going, you can download the app Period Tracker on your phone. I'm not sponsored by this. This is just the simple app that I've used before. And you're going to want to track the start and end date of your menstrual cycle. And then if you want to get more accurate answers, more accurate results, you would do basal body temperature tracking. And I've done this as well. I've used the Easy Home, I believe it was called, thermometer, and I think it had an app as well. So then you basically wake up in the morning, you take your body temperature, and I'm pretty sure when you're ovulating, your temperature is higher than it is normally. So it's very accurate and gives you exact days when you're ovulating. And I mean, the bonus of this is you know when you're fertile if you are trying to get pregnant. So just to go over all this again, because I know that was kind of a lot. To properly track your cycle, you need these three things. You need to know how long your cycle is. The average is 21 to 35 days. It varies between woman to woman. You, number two, need to track your menstruation, so start and end days of your period. And number three is you need to identify when your ovulation is, your fertile window. If you have these three things, you can properly customize your cycle based on your specific needs. Now, it's probably going to take 1 to 2 cycles for you to gather consistent data, knowing when your period is starting and ending, when you're ovulating, and how long your cycle is, because the app can't just go off of this when it doesn't have the proper data. So you're going to want to start tracking this for over the next couple months before you can actually really get the recipe, the secret sauce to track your cycle and start applying the cycle syncing method. And trust me, the process is definitely worth the wait. Now, once you know what your cycle length is and you feel like you have the proper data to start doing the cycle syncing yourself, there are 4 different phases that a woman goes through, and I'm going to give you a brief overview of what those phases are. I do plan to dive into specific episodes on each of these phases individually, but for today, I'll just quickly give you an overview of each of these. So the first phase to kick off the whole cycle starts when you're menstruating, on day 1 of your menstruation, and I like to call it the winter or reflection phase. So this is a phase that your body needs rest, and it's a reflection period. Like I said, you'll know when it starts because it starts on the first day of your period. The day you get your period marks the first day of this phase, and this phase lasts until the end of your period. So that's usually ranging anywhere from 5-7 days, sometimes more. So this would be a time that you really need to be listening to your body's needs for rest, self-analysis. It's a good time to journal, reflect, that sort of thing. The second phase I like to call spring or the renewal phase. This is the phase after your period and before your ovulation. And that usually lasts anywhere from 7 to 10 days. And you'll see, like I'm giving you averages here. And this is why it's so important that you get your specific data information so that you can customize it and you know, okay, pretty much every time I get my period, it lasts 7 days. And then I know that in 10 days, I'm going to get my ovulation, because that might be the answer for you, but for your neighbor next door, it might be totally different for her. So that's why I can't give you specific numbers. And that's why I'm really encouraging you to track your cycles so that you can apply this properly. So this renewal phase is a time that you basically feel your best. This is the phase every woman loves, and sadly, it doesn't last long. So make the most of it. I like to call it the renewal phase because it's a time where your hair, your nails, your skin, all of that is being renewed. Think of spring, and that's why this is the spring phase. Springtime is when flowers come up, new life after a long dormant winter. It's the same thing. Your body goes through those dormant times, and then it goes through times of growth. Okay, the third phase is the summer or flourish phase, as I call it, your ovulation time. This phase usually lasts 4 to 7 days, and this is when your social energy peaks. So this is the ideal time for you to be connecting with others, going out on those social events, meeting up with friends, going out for coffee, all of that, and also tackling those high energy tasks. Okay, and then the last phase is autumn or nurture phase. This is the longest phase, unfortunately. It typically lasts 10 to 14 days, so almost 2 weeks, honestly. And this is the time after your ovulation and then before you get your menstrual cycle again. And the reason I say unfortunately when I mentioned that it's a long-lasting phase is because this is the phase that you're often going to be more emotional. At this point, your energy is beginning to wind down. So this is a good time to focus on nesting. Think of when you're about to have a baby and you just want to nest and be cozy and just get ready, kind of hunker down. Same kind of analogy here. So you might want to do tiny organizing projects. I'm not talking about big projects like, okay, we're going to take everything out of our shop and we're going to reorganize it. Nope, we're not going to do that. That is for the summer phase. And I mean, you can be more emotional during this time, but if you're mindful about it, you can better prioritize how your days are spent. So taking on those big projects is going to make you emotional when you shouldn't be. You should be taking on the smaller projects. Going out and socializing 3 times in a weekend is probably most likely, for a lot of introverts anyways, going to overwhelm them and they might get stressed out about it. So we're not going to do that during this phase either. We're going to save that for the summer and flourish phase. This is the phase for finishing projects, doing little things like maybe knitting. That's like a low energy thing. That's something that can be actually quite therapeutic. Those are the kind of things that you would do during this time. And I just get so excited talking about this because isn't it so cool how the woman's body works? I mean, God designed us in this way on purpose, and I think it's a really special thing. Don't you think it's so interesting that once we can realize that we go through these different phases, we go through times of hibernation, we go through seasons of growth, we go through seasons of flourishing and high energy, motivation, and then there's that big period that the energy winds down and now we need to kind of focus and become more inward. It's really beautiful when you can naturally go with this rhythm with your body instead of working against it. And then you'll really realize that the overwhelming, the stressed out feelings will dwindle down because instead of working against your body, now you're working with it. For me, each month when my period starts, day 1, I know, okay, it's time to look at my calendar and plan out the month ahead based on what my cycle is going to be. So I have 4 different colored markers that I use. And so I'll go on the calendar and I'll color in the 5 to 7 days for the winter reflection phase on the calendar. And then I'll do the same for spring and then the same for summer as well as autumn. And so what that does is, because I'm a very visual person, I'm a visual learner, I can go up to my calendar, which hangs on the wall in our kitchen, and I can see ahead of time when someone gives me a call and they're like, hey, I have next Thursday off. What do you think about going out and meeting up with our little group of friends? If I can look at my calendar and see I'm in the autumn nurture phase during that week, it's probably not a good time for me to make that decision, because the funny thing is, oftentimes in the summer phase, you're feeling good. That's when you're feeling super motivated. You're ready to go out and see friends. So you make all these commitments with people, and just later to find out that you made those commitments during your nurture phase, the autumn period, when you actually shouldn't be doing that socializing. So that's why I think putting it on your calendar is actually really smart, because then when people ask you, if you're not at your calendar, you can say, I'll get back to you. And if you're at home and you can look at your calendar, you can go over and you can see what phase you'd be in for that day that they're asking you about. And you can determine whether or not it would be a good idea to make that commitment. My husband has also told me that he really appreciates that I put this on the calendar, because he can go over to the calendar and prepare himself mentally for that autumn nurture phase. So he'll know, okay, if she's acting a little more emotional, he has more grace with me during that time. So what do I want you to do with all of this information I just shared? I want you to start noting down, write it down when your cycle is starting, how long your period is, when it starts and ends, when your ovulation starts and ends, and then how long your entire cycle length is. Notice when your mood is changing over certain times. Notice when you're starting to feel motivated, when you're feeling more like reflecting. All those different things, noticing your emotions is just as important as noticing the physical signs. And because I know that was a lot of information, here is a quick recap of what I discussed today, your main takeaways, the things I want you to remember. So cycle syncing begins with learning about your unique cycle length, your period, and your ovulation times. No two women have identical cycles, so this is the foundation of being able to personalize it. There are 4 different phases that we go through in every single cycle. Number 1 is the winter and reflection phase, which is the time that you are needing to listen to your body's needs, take time for rest and self-analysis, self-reflection. And remember, this phase starts and stops when your period starts and when your period ends. The second phase is the spring or renewal time. This is when you feel your best. It's when you're often creative, your skin, your hair, that's all resetting. The third phase is summer or flourish phase, as I like to call it. And this starts and ends when your ovulation starts, when your ovulation ends. This is the perfect time, the ideal time to connect with others, to do your socializing, and to tackle those big projects. And then the last phase is the autumn or nurture phase, the longest phase of all the phases that we go through. And this is starting when your ovulation ends, and it stops when you get your period again, which would start the whole cycle and all of this over again. And remember, the nurture phase is not the phase to take on big projects or to go out and do a bunch of socializing. It's the time to hibernate. Think of yourself as a bear that goes in for winter. You slow down. You don't have a whole lot of energy during this time, so you need to focus on those small projects, the tiny little finishing projects that are therapeutic to you. Remember that in order to even begin cycle syncing, you have to be able to customize it to your own body. So you can do that by using tracking tools and methods like the basal body temperature thermometer or a period tracker app. And then over time, by doing this, it's going to paint you a complete picture of what your unique cycle is. And like I said, you cannot skip this step. The personalization part of this is essential, and everyone's cycles vary. If you try to follow someone else's cycle or go by a generalized average, it's not going to work for you, because you might be thinking you're in one phase when you're actually not in that phase, you're in a different phase. You could be thinking that you're in the summer motivation phase when really you're in the nurture phase and you should be hunkering down. That's going to really affect you, and it's going to cause the overwhelm. So personalization is key. And ultimately, why are we here? Why do we want to do this? Cycle syncing has lots of benefits like less stress, more balanced energy, gives you a greater sense of ease when you're planning your tasks or your social events, and the self-care throughout the month. If you're feeling overwhelmed in this, don't worry. I just want you to start small, and that can be just by downloading a period tracker app where you're tracking your period, and then it's going to, over time, kind of customize and predict when your period is coming and when you're going to ovulate. And this is the first and most important thing that's going to set you up for success in this. So even if you just do this for the next 3 or 4 months until you feel like you have a groove going, that's okay. And you know what? Every woman out there really should know about cycle syncing because it is so beneficial. So if you've learned something today and you're excited about tracking your cycle and learning how to apply these new methods to your life, take a screenshot of this episode and send it to a friend who would also really benefit from this. Then I want you to stay tuned for the future episodes that I mentioned in the beginning of this episode that are coming up, where I will be diving into each of the 4 phases in a more in-depth way. Before you go, if this podcast has encouraged or helped you in any way, the best way that you can show your support is by subscribing to the show and leaving a written 5-star review. Your words truly make my day and remind me why I love sharing here. You can also snap a screenshot of this episode and share it with a friend or post it to your Instagram stories. Make sure to tag me at Her Stable Home. Thanks so much for listening, friend. I will see you next time.